everyone. My name is Kim Kuda-Drang. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens. Good to be with you on this December. And on behalf of our Director and CEO, Dr. Andrea Barnwell Brownlee, as well as our entire Board of Trustees, I'm so delighted to welcome you here this evening to this virtual lecture. Tonight's talk is an incredible opportunity to spend time with artist Maia Cruz Palileo, whose works are currently on view at the Cummer Museum in the exhibition titled Days Later, Down River. Tonight's talk is generously supported by our program sponsors, Carmina and Philip Aldana. Thank you both very much. And I'd also like to extend a big thank you to our Jacksonville-based community advisors, Grace Bayo, Agnes Lopez, Vanessa Nicole, Cheryl Noblejas, and Varick Reset. Special thanks also to the Monique Meloche Gallery in Chicago for sharing these works with us, introducing us to Maia. We're so thrilled to be with you all. So before I introduce Maia, just a little bit of virtual housekeeping. We are recording, so this is going to be available on the Cummer Museum YouTube channel in the coming weeks. Take a look for that. We'd also love to hear from you during this talk. So while you all as attendees aren't able to be visible or audible during the live virtual program, we will have time for question and answer. So feel free, use the chat function or the Q&A function, excuse me, below. And Maia and I will address as many questions as we can along the way. You can put your questions in at any time during the program. Okay, so with that, let me introduce you to Maia. Maia Cruz Palileo is a multidisciplinary artist born in Chicago, Illinois, now based in Brooklyn, New York. And migration and the permeable concept of home are constant themes in their paintings, their installations, sculptures, and drawings. Influenced by familial oral histories about migrating to the United States from the Philippines, alongside the troubling colonial history between the two countries, Maia infuses these narratives using both memory and imagination in their works. So the slides on view, and I'm just showing you a couple of images from the installation at the museum. The works on view map an archival, a geological, and a spiritual topography of the Palileo family's homeland in the Philippines, and are inspired by Maia's recent residency at the University of Michigan, which houses one of the largest collections of Filipino artifacts outside of the Philippines. So by incorporating research from the archives, Maia's paintings really recontextualize stories, portraits, and images to resuscitate and remove the exploitative gaze of the ethnographic image. Maia's going to talk a little bit more about that research in the archives and opportunities in other archives as well. So a little bit more about Maia before Maia takes it away. Maia received an MFA in sculpture from Brooklyn College, City University of New York in Brooklyn, and a BA in studio art at Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley, Massachusetts. They received numerous accolades and awards, such as the Sharp Valentis Studio Program Award in 2022, the New York Foundation for the Arts Painting Fellowship in 2021, to name a couple. And their work is in the collections of private owners, as well as several museums, including the San Jose Museum of Art in San Jose, California, the Nasher Museum of Art at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, the Speed Museum in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Frederickson Collection at the National Museum of Oslo in Norway. Days Later, Downriver, which is currently on view at the Cummer Museum through December of this year. So if you have not experienced it yet, please do come to the Cummer and explore in person. And then, quick fun fact, Maia's work will also be on view again in the fall of 2024 when the museum hosts an exhibition from the Nasher Museum called Spirit in the Land. We're really excited. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen share, and Maia, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that introduction. Thanks everybody for coming and being here. Really happy to be able to gather virtually again tonight and talk about the exhibition. And what I wanted to do tonight was just to kind of bring you, I guess, behind the scenes a little bit and show you some images that you don't get to see when you go to see the show. And I will talk about the paintings and the exhibition. So I'm just gonna share my screen here. And sound. Okay. So everything look okay, you can see this?
Looks great.
Great. Okay. All right. So I just put this together. This is kind of it's important for me to I think um, give some context to the works that you see in the show, just because I rarely get to share this stuff actually. We did just publish a book called Long Cuento, which is available at the Comer, and I worked on it with the curator Kim Wynn, who had curated a show of my work at CCA Wadis in San Francisco 2 years ago, and we we thought it was important to share the resource material, and our collaboration was really special to me. And she wrote an essay for that exhibition, which this is a quote from that exhibition. And I just found it to be a really good sort of starting point, the way that the kind of language that she used around the works and to contextualize it. So this is a quote from Kim's essay, Untether. There is first realization of what was never taught or told, followed by a constant and unskilled removal of the colonial plaque from our psyches. So that, oh, let me see. Okay, here we go. So that brings me to what I was doing, the year before I made all these paintings. So research is a really important part of my practice. I had a mentor, the late painter Denise Tomasos, who taught me to be a research-based artist. So this shows some of I'm just going to kind of do a show and tell sort of the kind of things that we got to see at the University of Michigan. So in the spring of 2022, me and two other artists, Filipinx artists, Filipinx American artists, were invited to come to the University of Michigan for a fellowship that was centered around bringing in artists to have access to their collections. And so this was not the first time that I had done research in an archival setting. I had gone to Chicago in 2017, and that started my sort of research journey, I guess, looking into the American archives, Philippine collections of the American archives. And in the Philippines was a colony of the United States in 1898 and until 1947. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit, and something that Kim and I were talking about with the exhibition is that when I made the works, and you walk in and there's this room full of big paintings, and my intention of working in that size was to create an immersive experience for the viewer. And I think that when paintings become large in scale, our bodies relate to them in a different way. And I think this theme of embodiment and relation to the space that we're in, or the environment that we're in, also the history that is present in that environment, is really important. And so I'm sort of bringing us back to this place where I was in this very immersive experience of researching in the actual buildings that house these collections. Also, please feel free to just ask any questions, because this might be like a little bit foreign or a lot to take in. So I just wanted to give you like a sense of scale of what these archives are like. I always describe it to people like, if you imagine 3 Costcos all together, like that's what this place is like. And here's an image. This is the herbarium. And you can see how large, and in these file cabinets are just stacks and stacks and stacks of botanical samples. You can see here. So imagine there's one here, and then it's a giant warehouse. So this was the first day of our experience there. They also have the birds that are in the collection. So if you imagine like a library, but it's actual specimens. So these have been collected from all over the world. This tray was the not the one on the one on the left is the hornbill, which did come specifically from the Philippines. And then I think at the right on the right, this image is birds from other places. Um, and then again, here's the scale of what these archives look like. And this was just a lizard in a jar with its hand over its face, which, I mean, it just kind of explains the mood of this place. Yep, anything you want to see at these archives, they've got them. They have, you know, this is the guy that takes care of everything. He's got the big key, the roll of keys, and, you know, you need to get his permission to get in there. These are some snakes, colorful snakes. These are the people I was with. On the left here is Jana Año Nuevo Langholtz, and this is Francis Estrada. They were the other two artists that were in residence with me. So the three of us were together. Deirdre de la Cruz is a faculty member who started this project at one of the people who started this project at University of Michigan. So mollusks, deer, all kinds of things. This actually was an animal, a taxidermied animal that was actually on display at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1906. But we weren't allowed to touch it because they used something very poisonous to do the taxidermy. So, but this is actually the actual animal from that time. Oh, and I asked, so this is so vast. Like I said, they literally have everything. And I said, I had made a painting of some flying fox bats. And I said, oh, do you have any flying foxes here? And they said, yeah, come to the mammal section at 5 and we'll show you. So this was the flying fox bat that they had. Very bizarre experience. And then of course the libraries. This was a collection of postcards in the library. There were letters. This on the left is a letter written by a Filipino student about a teacher who, this was like, they were like, the student was complaining about the treatment of the way the American teacher was treating the students, which we kind of kept out as our like little talisman that stayed out there. And then here we are looking at more images. So and then also the anthropology department as well had many objects. So we had access to all of these things. A lot of essays written by students during the colonial period. Topics ranging from folklore to, you know, why the American government is great and why Filipinos need to be ruled, and or all the different kinds of trees that are available in the Philippines, all kinds of stuff. These are some of the objects. And then in terms of like specificity in place, I did find a few places. This is postcards from Pagsanghan Falls, which shows up in the paintings in the exhibition. And this is where my father's family is from. And there's two twin rivers in this town, and it's been, the rivers and the falls are very well known, but they've also sort of like in our family stories a lot too. So for me, it's interesting to see these places. And this is
Maia,
yes.
this is
Yes.
Kim. Before you go on, there's just a couple of questions in the chat, and one of them
Sure,
I think you'll or in the Q&A. One person asked, out of all of the things that you saw in the archives, what surprised you the most?
I think just the vastness of the archive. You know, it's like, I know this is really, I don't know why this example is coming to mind, but like the first time I went to Joshua Tree in California, like I thought of like the U2 like album cover, and I'm like, it's a tree like in a field, but it's like, no, Joshua Tree is not a tree in a field. Like this was like University of Michigan is like a state park of, it's insane. So I think I was surprised the most by the amount of things that they had, um, and that I could think of something and ask if they had it, and probably find it. So I think that's really what kind of blew my mind the most.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And then another question coming up that you might be getting to. Angela's asking, when you say that you're a research artist, what exactly does that mean?
So being a research artist means that as an artist, I do a lot of research around the topics that I'm interested in. And that research informs the work that I then make. So for me, in the beginning, I was interested in my family. So my research at that time was talking to my grandma, who is still alive, asking her questions about, just to tell me stories, and questions that I specifically had was like, what was it like when you first moved here? What was it like when you lived in the Philippines? Like, what is the Philippines like? Those kind of things. Like, so for me, that was my research of learning all of that stuff, in addition to collecting photographs from my family, being sort of like the family archivist, and home videos, photo albums, looking through all those and actually making work from that. So that's when it started. And then I sort of started to get curious because as I mentioned, the United States, Philippines was a colony, United States, until 1947, which is actually the year both of my parents were born. So I didn't have too much information or archival material from my family before 1947. So my research then became about researching archival material pre 1947. And that's what took me to Chicago at the Newberry Library, the Field Museum. And I learned about all of these archives, these American um, archives that were amassed during the time that the Philippines was a new colony of the United States after the Philippine American War. And I didn't know any of that history. It's like, it's embarrassing to say that, but I think that that's something that um, is an experience in that first quote that I included in from Kim Wynn's essay, which is, there is this experience of um, through researching to uncover what isn't taught, what wasn't taught to me by my family, what wasn't taught to me in a textbook in school, in the history textbooks in school, and to really question, like, where do we get this information and how is it passed down, and who is making the decisions of what it is that people are learning about these places, and who's telling the story. So um, that might be a long answer, but I think maybe in the past I might have thought like, oh, I like one thing that was really hard when I first became an artist was like, what do I make work about? Like, I know I like to work with materials and stuff, but what am I conceptually interested in? And I think that that's where the research comes in. Okay, ask a follow-up question if you still if that didn't answer your question. Um, yes. Okay, great. Yeah, keep the questions coming. This is good. So yeah, so this is a quote. Justin De Leon also contributed to Long Cuento in the book, an essay called An Invitation. And he wrote, my longing has always been marked by silence, a silence of the past, ever present as I navigate the present. Um, and I think in his essay, he talks about silence as a space of contemplation, as a space of sort of like a scary, it can be a scary space. It can be a power, like it can be detrimental, but it can also be powerful. So I think in thinking about painting, silence is something that I think about as well. This is more archival material. There's a lot of glass slides, and this is like 2 slides on top of each other. So thinking about like the layering and sort of like palimpsestic um, space where you can, something might be covering over something, but you can still see what's behind it. So that's something I also think about a lot in painting. And then this is a photo album that I found. And again, talking about specificity of place. This is this says up here, forest near Mud Springs, March 22nd, 1915, Mount Makiling. And this is a mud spring. So this was in the library there in University of Michigan. And the reason I focused in on this is because I was familiar with this mountain, Mount Makiling, through the stories that I had heard from my family. So that's kind of like, this is the end of what I'll show you of my time in Michigan. But I'll just say that when I do research, like I don't always know what's going to come next. But what I'll do is I'll take all of that information physically. Like I take these pictures that I showed you, I take these pictures, sometimes I'll print them out. I have all of these things that I've read and seen and experienced, and I bring it back to the studio. And this in particular, because I was interested in this particular place, Mount Makiling, which has folklore around it that I had heard from my family about a spirit that lives in the mountain, and that the mountain itself is in the shape of a sleeping person. So there's a lot of, it's a very well-known story, and there's actually a lot of artworks that have been made about Maria Makiling, who is the name of the spirit, that I've seen before. So I was interested in kind of like myself taking a journey into this place that I had never been to but heard of, through the archive. So so once I got back to the studio, I took a lot of these images and I just started piecing them together. So this is a collage from images from inside of Mount Makiling. And this is my process, sort of starting to piece together what it is that I've seen, cut them out, and put them back together in a way that helps me to sort of go to this place, go inside of this place. So these are all the collages, and I started also mirroring the images. As you can see, these are mirrored image. And what started to happen in these mirrored images is that the space started to take on sort of a different tone. They started to feel a little mysterious or mystical. You know, when you mirror something, they start to have eyes and a face and things like that. Really interesting changing of the space. And you may recognize some of these in the painting. So this is like how I get started to think about how I want to make the structure of the paintings. And then in addition to the Michigan archive, Francis Estrada, who I showed you a picture of, artist that I was in Michigan with, I was asking him, like, have you ever been? So there's another mountain near Mount Makiling, which is called Mount Banahao, which I've heard of through, I have an aunt who's my Filipino spirituality mentor, who's been telling me that you got to go to Mount Banahao. This is like a sacred mountain. It's a very, like, people do pilgrimages there, and many people have like these protective amulets, and you can buy the amulet, but you have to go get it activated. So you have to go to Mount Banahao on Good Friday and put it in the special waterfall, and then it will protect you. So I was talking to Francis. I actually started all the work already, and Francis came to the studio, and he said, "Yeah, I went to Mount Banahao. Yeah, I got this. This is, you know, he's wearing a amulet. He's like, yeah, I got this blessed there. Like, I'll send you all my pictures from Dropbox." So this is also part of my research. So these are the pictures that Francis sent me from his trip to Mount Banahao, which was strikingly different than these archival images. um, so, you know, it's an extinct volcano, and these natural springs are believed to have like healing properties. And so people come from all over and get in these waters for healing purposes. There's a lot of these spots where you light candles. So this starts to like show up in the work and inform the work. And, you know, as a part of like my collaging process, like it was like these figures, it was like, okay, now I have this space and now it's going to get populated by these figures that come from the archive, which started to become actually part of the landscape. So here's an example of some of the figures that the sort of like transformation from the figure itself into, if you can see, here's a figure and then here's the sort of landscaped figure. So they start to really become one with the landscapes. I see there's some questions. Should I
There's
address those?
there's one question specifically about the hidden figures. And so it seems like someone who's been to the museum before, because they're saying there are hidden figures, or what I call hidden figures, in the works at the Kummer. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those represent? Because they're also sometimes next to figures that are more obviously human figures, and they're not so hidden. So tell us
Right.
a little bit about both of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, you know, thinking about these sacred spaces, um, and thinking about the visible and the invisible. So, you know, I think a lot of what is visible in, let's say, an archival photograph, such as this one, this is very like scientific, you know, it's like, here's the picture and here's what it is. You know, it's clouds going through mossy forest, and that's kind of it. But like what my experience of hearing the stories of this place, like you would never know looking at this picture that, oh, there's a spirit that lives in this mountain. There's no like mention of that at all. It's very kind of like cut and dry. So when I um so once I started like talking to people and doing the research and learning about all of this other stuff that you don't see in the archive, I think that's where the line starts to blur, where it's like this sense of place. You know, we're all situated in a place, but do we think about what we maybe don't know about that place, or what came before that place, or who built this building that we're all sitting in today, and what was here before that building was here, you know, like all of these layers that we don't see that are still present, you know, today. So that's something that I think about a lot. And when I was talking about those layers, those slides that were layered up together, like that's how I think about with painting, which is literally made up of hundreds of layers. That all of those layers still exist at the same time, and some of them are visible and some of them are not. So by like creating these sort of like having these hidden figures, they're there. You might not see them right away, but they're certainly there. And it's something I think about too in terms of the different kinds of knowledge, um, the different kinds of knowledges that are accepted as knowledge, if this makes sense. Like, well, we could go to a textbook and see what this is written here, or you could go to like a town and talk to the people from that town. They might tell you something different, or you might go on your own experience into the rainforest and have like whatever that happens, and that's different. You know, all these different kinds of knowledges um, that exist, like parallel um, and simultaneously. I think that's sort of where these uh, figures that are sometimes very clear, you can see them, and sometimes they're not, and there's even figures that are just completely painted over, but they're still there. So I think, yeah, just thinking about, the all of the different layers of time, like almost like striated dirt or something, or earth. Okay, and then is there another question?
There is, and
Or,
I'll ask it, but if you
okay,
want to defer it to a later time, depending on where we're going to go in your talk, just let me know. So
okay.
Susan is it's really an observation that you've referenced your career as a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And to her, she's imagining that's similar to what a doctor's work is, like a medical practice, so your artistic practice. And Susan's noting that she just hadn't really heard of anyone using that terminology before, artistic practice. Is there anything
Oh,
you'd like to say about practice and process and what you're showing us on screen as far as what your
mm,
process is?
that's a good question. I guess I think also I played sports growing up, so it's like you go to practice. I mean, I think the thing about practice is like it's we're doing something over and over again, and it's not set in stone, I guess. So I mean, I think in terms of artistic practice is like um showing up to something like every day, basically. And I think of it too like having a studio practice. I think when you're first starting out, it's like, oh, will I go to the studio today or won't I go to the studio? Like it's kind of like this, like I used to like wait and like, okay, if the B train comes, I'll go home. Or if the N train comes, I'll go to the studio. You know what I mean? Like, no, like my practice is I'm like, yeah, I'm like a doctor, like 9 to 6, I'm open. I'm at the studio working. Not that every artist is like that. I happen to be I just need to be in the studio to work, but you know, all work, obviously, as I just showed you, doesn't happen in the studio. Research is a big part of it, having experiences, all of that stuff, experience, like being in community, all of that is art practice. Um, so I guess, yeah, I like to think of it as a practice, I guess. Yeah.
That's great.
Um,
Thank you. So
mhm.
what are we looking at on here? Are these like study
So
images
yeah, I
or
just wanted to show too, like kind of get into the process of the work. These are small paintings, gouache paintings on paper. And uh, in addition to the collages, I'll also work on these paintings um, on a smaller scale to sort of start to think about compositions, color combinations, some of the figures that I might want to insert into the larger paintings. So if you could see down here, there's a painting. This figure shows up in one of the paintings at Cummer. Um, and this just sort of helps me to widen the reference material as well, and these paintings I show as well on their own, but it's just sort of wanting to get in. I wanted to get into like what it's like in the studio, how these archival images function in the works. So these are some shots of my studio as I was making these paintings, and a lot of people had questions while I was there about the materials and the process. So I thought it would be good to show some of these in progress works. So this is kind of like early stage of the paintings. And so I work on a black background, that's black gesso. And then what you see here on the screen is mostly a water-based uh, acrylic paint, flash paint. So I work on them flat. I don't know if I have an image of them. No, okay. Well, generally I'll lay these flat, but here you can see the beginnings of many of the paintings that are in the show. So this is kind of how it starts. And I was thinking about these two figures here that are with the horse. And I was thinking about this show as a, uh, a trek into the mountain. So we needed some guides. So this two figures with the horse was the first painting that I started. And I also wanted to share just, I'm actually planning a trip to the Philippines. So I remembered that I should go look at my pictures from when I went last time. But then it was relating to some of the works also in the show. I had shown you the postcards of the Pagsanghan Falls. So this is the town that my father's family is from. And this is when you enter the town, there's like this big, this is like, you know, you're in Pagsanghan because there's this big arch. And this is our ancestral home in Pagsanghan, which is like in the main square. And this is from my photo album, my grandmother's photo album, and if you recognize, there's the two figures here who are with us in the Kummer. They're holding hands, and they're taking us on. This is my grandmother right here, and this is her roommates from her time in school. And my grandmother was really a big part of my life, obviously, but also in my work. So we wrote letters back and forth. So she wrote, this is from her letter. How is this from my imagination? I think a nice one, I think. And she told me a lot of stories. And I think she kind of taught me how to imagine, you know, what their life was like. And she told me a lot of stories, and she would tell me the same stories. And then when I started making my own work, I was like, what stories isn't she telling me? Like, I'm curious about what she's editing out, or like, why am I learning all these other things that she hasn't told me? So it's sort of interesting to think about. Again, this is from my family archive. The photograph on the left is here's my grandmother here in the middle, and this is my great grandmother, her mother, and they are on vacation. I think this is May 1921, not, or maybe 1931. But as you can see, this mountain in the background matches this mountain from this book, Maria Makiling. So the book on the right is a story of the spirit in the mountain, written by Jose Rizal. And that's my grandmother and my great grandmother going on vacation with the mountain in the background. So it's like part of our family history. Here's the finished painting. And I just wanted to share too, this is a painting that's inside our ancestral home. Can you guess what it's of? So this is oops. This is kind of like a typical kind of painting of Maria Makiling, the spirit in the mountain. And she's almost always pictured like bathing by a stream with a deer near her. And so I made my own version. So some people ask me like, this is called a sleeping mountain. This is my Maria Makiling painting, my version of it. So when you go to the Cumber, or if you've already seen it, I encourage you to spend time looking at this painting. I showed you already a few of the collages, so I don't know if you'll remember, but there was a figure up here, and there's another figure over here, kind of behind the tree. And the Sleeping Mountain is a figure here. You can see it. There's the head. And then you've got the deer here. So this is the spirit sleeping, lying down on like a hammock. And then the deer are here.
And then in the center, we toward the top, we see that example of the mirroring. Is that right, or is that just my perception? Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, not everything is mirrored, but a lot, like this center part here. Yeah, it's definitely, you can see the mirroring there. And then again, back in Pagsanghan, what they're famous for is the falls. So this is a mural in the town. You can take a boat ride and see the falls. It was also where Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now was filmed. So they actually set up the set and like left it there. I don't know if it's still there or not, but I guess I'll find out when I go in January. So that's a very interesting layer. So that's what kind of inspired this painting. This is of Paksanghan Falls, and I was sort of looking at the colorized postcards that I found in the archive, as well as sort of my family, mixing in there the family knowledge and stories, myths about this place. And this is a collage that many of the works sort of originated from. So sometimes I'll do, this is like a one really long collage, and I'll make like several paintings from them. So yeah, there's this painting and this one.
Can you, and do you know the significance of the candles? And we saw that in the photographic image as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think about also just like being uh sites of, like, if you were like walking on a path and a candle is burning, it means probably someone was just there or is there. And I think typically, I mean, what I think about with candles is like maybe you might light a candle for somebody who's passed on, or you might light a candle if you want to like relax, or just thinking about, but I think specifically, like I said, when I spoke with Frances and my aunt, um the significance of this place, of this mountain being a pilgrimage site and a spirit, like a place for spirits, um that is really like something that I think about a lot too, is how do we honor those who have come before us, and and yeah, and maybe they can see maybe they can see the flames, or in this painting in particular, um there's definitely, like you said, the obvious people figures, and then there's the figures who you might not see right away.
There's a question in the Q&A about asking if those people are riding a water buffalo. So I'm not sure if that was this image that we're currently looking at that the commenter is asking about.
Which image? Oh, this one?
Yeah. Do you
I
have
mean,
any?
I guess you could see. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say. If you see a water buffalo, that's fine with me.
It's
um,
open to interpretation.
I mean, and same with the other one where I pointed them out. I'm like, should I point these out or not? But anyway, I just wanted to, I guess that's what I was thinking. Um, yeah, so I think I just have these paintings. And then I wanted to also share just like what I've been working on as well. And then this is the end of my slideshow. These are the new paintings. And I really felt like I was just continuing on from the work that I was making that you guys have at the Comer. Large scale painting. This sort of continues on. This one, if you'll notice, there's like footprints here. That was kind of inspired by a story I had read in one of the student essays about folklore, where they talked about leaving a basin of ashes outside of one's door after like a family member passes away, and like on the third day the family member, or the spirit of the family member, is supposed to come to visit. So they put the ashes in front of the door, and they'll know that they came to visit because there would be footprints uh, in the house, so they knew that their loved one came back. And I just, sometimes like paintings start that way. I didn't quite know where this painting was going to end up, but I started with the footprints. So this is called tracing traces. So that there's sort of larger than life figure in sort of like this floral dress shows up, and there's also a darker mirrored figure back here, and then there's sort of like remnants of altar-like things. There's some candles, so sort of thinking about, you know, like I had just mentioned, when we light a candle and sort of have somebody in our thoughts, you know, maybe they're there, maybe they show up, you know, in a way like at these spaces. And then this is another painting. I just showed this one for scale. And yeah, I think I'll just show these new ones and then you can ask questions. This is a little bit close up with it. This is another one. This is the same size as this one. So they're large paintings. This one's called The Trees Straightened Their Bent Trunks. And that's from the story of Maria Makiling, where when the storm would come, the spirit would come, glide by, and all the trees that had fallen down in the storm would come snap right back up. And then this is the last painting I'll show. And this is called All Kinds of Palms. All right, so yeah, that's the end of my slideshow.
Amazing. You really could get
I see some
lost
questions
in a
here.
good way. Yes, we have quite a few questions now. A couple are about your process and the materials that you use. So what's the biggest difference between working with acrylic and working with flash?
Not a huge difference, but flash has kind of a different consistency. It's a vinyl paint, so it dries very matte, like it's very flat. I mean, there's flat acrylics too, but you know, you can water it down, you can dilute it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then how long does it take you for each of these? I know when you were talking in the pre-meeting before the talk,
Yeah.
you mentioned you work on many works simultaneously, and we saw that in some of your studio shots where you had like 5 different ones against a wall and they were all in progress.
Right. Yeah, it typically takes, I usually just say it takes a couple of months for each painting. But that might be like in a 6 to 9 month period, I'm working on like 7 paintings. So yeah, I think yeah, because I don't work like one painting only and wait until that's done and then work on the next one. Everything kind of, like I said, actually the painting with the 2 figures and the horse, that was the first painting that I made, and it was the last painting that I finished. So I think that's, when I work on a body of work, that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah, that's great. One more question in the Q&A. This person saying, it's awesome that storytelling is such a critical component of your practice. Will you please say more about the artwork called It Was Said They Could See Each Other's Memories 1, which is on the signature wall at the Cummer. I think it's actually 2 that's on the signature wall, the title wall. Tell us about this specific location and the corresponding layers. Is there anything more you'd like to say about that one?
Let me see if I can flip that. Is it this one or this one? Oh, the one that's on the back wall?
I think it's that one. Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, I feel like I just talked about this one a little bit. These 2 actually they have the same title, so they're 1 and 2. And if you saw in the studio shots, they were next to each other. And the other painting, sorry, I'm a little stuffed up. This painting, so these 3 paintings, they're all square. And originally I was thinking about them as a triptych. So it was almost like this was one side of that painting, this was in the middle, and then this painting was on the other side, so it was flanked. So in a way, like in my mind, these 3 paintings are like siblings, or they're also like scenes from the same place. So if you were to look to the left, you look to the right, and look ahead, there are each of these 3 different paintings. So yeah, there's some musicians in both of them, and originally these figures were more like filled out, like they were all recognizable. So on this one, I had all the figures that look like people, look like figures, and then here the figures got filled up into the landscape. And yeah, I mean, I think just like in terms of painting, this one I was really interested in kind of creating that mist and that waterfall effect. And I think actually, like, I love the way this is displayed at Cummer, because the way it's isolated and the light on it, like you can really see that there's like iridescent paint on there. It's just got this like shimmer and like mystical, like kind of wet, like what's it called? Yeah, like there's like mist and fog. That was something I was thinking about a lot in these paintings too, is like the atmosphere of these paintings. So there's the mist from the waterfall, so it's almost like these figures in the back are looking through the mist. Or maybe it could be also like a veil between the groups of figures. um and then yeah, like, and then in this one, sort of using this sort of spotting of the paint, sort of to create the mist in a different way, which is a little more like celestial, um just like nerdy painting thing, maybe.
Lots of content, lots of
Yeah.
content in these paintings. They
Hmm.
definitely benefit, or the viewer benefits from taking your time and spending time.
Hmm.
I think we even had Monique, who had these works in the gallery in Chicago,
Hmm.
mention that there was something in one of the paintings that she just had never noticed before until she came to
Yeah.
the Cummer to see it. So there
Oh,
really
wow.
can be something new that you experience every time
Mm.
you visit these works, because there's just so
Hmm.
much to take in.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Do we have any more? I see lots of hearts and smiles and claps coming in from the group reactions. Any questions that folks have? I just noted in the chat that you can find a recording of this in our YouTube channel in the coming weeks. Holly also mentioned that the shop has a fantastic catalog for sale of all of these works. So if you want to check that out, catalogs make great gifts for the holidays. You might not be able to give someone the entire exhibition, but you could give them the catalog and they can experience Maia's works. Any other questions, folks? This has been really fantastic. And there's a couple of moments I had, Maia, where you showed it looks like 2 slides layered over each other.
Yeah.
And my face just went like, wow, I get it. Because I feel like I've seen that in some of your works, and it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So being able to walk us through the process, and yeah, it really helps understand the works even more and be able to pick out those different layers. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
One of the attendees is asking if there are any of these available in prints.
Oh, I think the catalog would be
The
the best
best
bet.
the
Or
best
the
way to
book.
Long
Yeah,
Cuento is the
Long
book.
Cuento. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
That would be the best. Yeah, because they just exist as paintings. There's still no other yeah, reproduction of it.
And in addition to coming to the museum to see this exhibition before it closes at the end of December, there's always really great videos and documentary style videos of Maya and Maya's practice, and some archival imagery and family imagery and videos, things like that. So if you just Google Maia Cruz Palileo in YouTube, you'll find a lot of different resources that give you a little bit more insight into background. So thank you so much for sharing your time. Andrea, our director, is also saying thank you so much for being with us tonight and discussing your work, Maya. Yeah, we're really, really thrilled. Thank you so much for sharing these works, and please give our best to everyone in your household and at the Monique Meloche Gallery for loaning these works to us. I'm sure their new owners are really excited to get them after the show closes. So we appreciate your support and the gallery support. Also, thank you to the Aldanas for their program support of this exhibition. And we hope to see you all at the museum soon.
Thank you so much.
Any last words, Maya?
Well, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks, Kim. It's a great conversation, and I was happy to share, a little bit more about the work, and I hope that y'all enjoy the last few days of the exhibition, or last few weeks, I guess.
Yeah, it feels like only a few days, but yes, we have a few weeks. That's great. Thank you so much. Well, have fun in Miami. Safe travels.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
All
and
right.
have great holidays. We'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Maya.
Bye.